Ethan Cole had always thought college life would be quiet. His days were filled with lectures, lab experiments, and the occasional late-night snack raid. Being a xenobiology student, he expected the unusual, but nothing in his textbooks had prepared him for Zyra 10. The notice from the university had been brief. You will have an alien roommate this semester. Cooperation is mandatory. Ethan blinked several times. Alien roommate? In his tiny, cluttered dorm room? Surely this had to be a mistake. When he arrived at his dorm room that afternoon, he found the door already open. Light spilled out in shifting colors, pale blues, deep violets, and occasional flashes of silver. And in the middle of it stood Zyra, tall and elegant, her crystalline skin shimmering like glass in the sunlight. She looked beautiful and utterly alien. Her long limbs moved with a fluid grace, and her head was adorned with subtle ridges that reflected light like delicate prisms. Her eyes glowed faintly, adjusting as she looked at him. Hello, Ethan said cautiously. I'm Ethan, you must be Zyra? She tilted her head, her body pulsating with a soft amber glow. A melodic sound somewhere between a sigh and a hum filled the room. Ethan jumped back. Right. I'll take that as a greeting. Zyra's notebook floated beside her, a transparent sheet with glowing symbols he couldn't read. She made a gesture with her hand, pointing at him, then mimicking his mouth movement. Ethan realized she was trying to speak human words. You will learn, she said finally, her voice light but precise. To be human, yes? Ethan swallowed. I think we'll start with introductions first. The first few hours were chaotic. Zyra observed everything with intense curiosity. The small refrigerator, the microwave, even the way Ethan brushed his teeth. She scribbled notes in her floating notebook, occasionally muttering to herself in a musical, untranslatable language. Why do humans cover their bodies with cloth? She asked at one point, staring at his t-shirt. Well, it's fashion and social norms, Ethan said. He tried to explain, but her glowing aura brightened as she tilted her head. Clearly, she found his answer unsatisfactory. When Ethan tried to take a shower later, he returned to find Zyra holding up a toothbrush, examining it like a precious artifact. This is how you clean teeth? She asked. Ethan nodded. She copied his movements, brushing in her precise, awkward way, which sent sparks of light scattering across the tile floor. By evening, the dorm hall had buzzed with whispers. Students peeked through windows and doors, gawking at Zyra's beauty and bizarre behavior. Some were fascinated. Others were terrified. She had no sense of privacy, and her glowing skin made her impossible to ignore. Ethan decided it was time for a human culture crash course. Okay, he said, taking a deep breath. Lesson 1, clothes. He held up a hoodie. You wear this outside, not like whatever you're wearing. Zyra touched the fabric gently, her fingers leaving faint, shimmering marks. She looked at him seriously. Outside. Yes, protection. Social adherence, understood. Then she put it on upside down. Next came food. Zyra had never tasted Earth cuisine. She poked at a slice of pizza with a curious finger. When Ethan explained what cheese was, she nodded thoughtfully, then took a huge bite, eyes widening in surprise at the taste. Her glowing intensified, so brightly in fact that the dorm lights flickered. I can feel flavors, she said. Colors of taste are bright. Ethan laughed nervously. Yeah, sometimes humans enjoy that. By the second day, Zyra had attempted human laughter. It was not subtle. When Ethan told a simple joke about biology lab mishaps, she threw her head back and emitted a pulse of light from her chest. The dorm hall's electricity cut out for a full 5 minutes. Students knocked on the door, complaining about the blackout. Ethan apologized profusely while Zyra blinked innocently. Was that incorrect? She asked. Did I disrupt human social systems? Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose. Just maybe try quieter next time. Despite the chaos, Ethan began to see something extraordinary in Zyra. She wasn't just a guest or an experiment. She wanted to understand, truly, what it meant to be human. She tried humor, mimicked his gestures, and even asked him to teach her about emotions. One rainy evening, after a particularly long day of misadventures, Zyra stood by the window gazing at the puddles forming outside. Ethan watched her, worried about the glow dimming slightly. Why do humans like rain? She asked quietly. It feels refreshing, Ethan said, shrugging. Cleanses the mind, makes you feel alive, I guess. Zyra tilted her head. Then hesitantly she reached for his jacket. Ethan froze. Her hands were cold but delicate. "To keep warmth," she said softly. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. For a being so alien, her gestures carried a human kindness that no textbook could describe. "Thanks," he said, wrapping the jacket around her shoulders. That night, Zira decided to take the first step in her learning experiment. She set up her notebook with glowing pens and started her own Lesson 1 Human Behavior. She copied Ethan's notes, wrote her own observations, and even attempted to recreate a human smile in the mirror. Ethan peeked at her work and chuckled. The page read, "Humans laugh to show joy. Sometimes they cry to show care. They have many small rituals involving food, clothing, and sleep. Observation alone is insufficient. Must practice feelings. Not bad for a first day," Ethan said, smiling. Sarah's light pulsed softly in what he guessed was pleasure. "Tomorrow," she said, "I will blend in more. Observation is no longer enough. I must live humanity." Ethan shook his head, half amused, half overwhelmed. "This is going to be interesting," he admitted, and indeed it would. Between her glowing mishaps, her innocent misunderstandings, and her growing determination, Ethan knew that his quiet college life had officially ended. The next morning, Zira appeared at breakfast in a strange combination of human fashion: one glove, 2 hats and sunglasses tilted awkwardly on her crystalline face. She held up her notebook. "Lesson 1, Blending In," she announced, beaming. The dorm hall erupted in whispers and laughter. Ethan groaned, realizing that the adventure had just begun. But for the first time in his life, he didn't mind. He was no longer teaching a room full of textbooks. He was teaching an alien to be human. And somehow Ethan had the feeling that he might learn a little about himself in the process. The next morning, Ethan awoke to the sound of something metallic clanging. He rubbed his eyes and peered out of the dorm window. Zira was in the middle of the hall holding a frying pan in one hand and a loaf of bread in the other, her crystalline skin glowing with concentration. "Breakfast?" she asked. Ethan groaned. Sure. What exactly are you doing?" "I am studying human sustenance rituals," she replied solemnly. "Bread is a complex subject: texture, heat, aroma." She placed the bread on the pan and pressed it with precision. After a moment, a plume of smoke erupted, filling the room with the smell of burned toast. Ethan waved his hand in front of his face. "Let me help with that." Zira tilted her head. "Assistance is accepted." It was going to be a long day. Zira threw herself fully into her human experiments. She followed Ethan to lectures, copying his notebook, asking questions at every pause, and sometimes blinking so brightly that other students squinted. In the cafeteria, she attempted to eat a hot dog. She carefully examined the sausage, bread, and condiments, then applied each ingredient separately on a plate. When she finally took a bite, her body emitted a soft pulse of light that made nearby diners giggle and whisper. "Is it enjoyable?" Ethan asked, watching her expression. "Yes," she said. "Texture. Savory. Odd. Delightful." She scribbled notes furiously in her floating notebook. By mid-afternoon, Zira had decided that social interaction was the next frontier. She approached a group of students talking about weekend plans. "I wish to understand this human bonding ritual," she said. Her words were careful, precise, and slightly musical. A boy snickered. Sure, you can hang with us." Zira tilted her head and nodded. She attempted casual conversation but misread every idiom. When someone said, "Break a leg on your test," she paused and looked horrified. "Why would you wish injury? Are humans violent?" The group laughed and Ethan had to explain quietly. "It's just a saying." Zira blinked. "Curious. Language is unpredictable." One of Zira's funniest mistakes occurred in the campus cafe. She tried to serve drinks to customers by mimicking Ethan's movements from the previous day. She accidentally poured foam instead of coffee into everyone's cups, causing a small avalanche across the counter. "Is this acceptable?" she asked. "No," Ethan exclaimed, frantically trying to mop up the mess. "Not exactly." Despite the chaos, Zira's determination impressed him. She wasn't trying to cheat or be perfect. She genuinely wanted to understand. Her mistakes were part of her learning, and that made her special. As days passed, Ethan noticed something deeper. Zira didn't just mimic human actions. She tried to understand why humans did them. She asked him about sadness, happiness, and even love. "Why do humans cry when they feel sadness?" she asked one evening as they sat on the dorm roof watching the sunset. Because it means something mattered, Ethan replied. Humans feel strongly about what's important. Emotions, they make us human. Zyra's glow dimmed slightly as if she were concentrating hard. Then to understand humanity, I must learn to care. Deeply? Yes, Ethan said. He smiled softly. Caring is the core of being human. Zyra looked at him, her light flickering in quiet determination. I will learn to care, she said. However, not everyone was impressed with her progress. A Virelian ambassador arrived unexpectedly on campus. She was tall, imposing, and carried herself with the pride of someone used to authority. 010, the ambassador said, voice like crystal chimes. Your integration program has failed. Your behavior is chaotic. You mimic humans without understanding your own species' honor. Zyra stiffened. Her body glowed faintly, trembling. I am learning, she replied. Observation alone is insufficient. I must live human life to understand fully. The ambassador's expression hardened. Living among humans is dangerous. You bring disorder. You must return home for re-education. Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding. No, she's learning. She's trying. You can't just take her away. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. Humans do not understand discipline. Intervention will only cause problems. Ethan clenched his fists. She's not a problem. She's a person. She's like us in ways that matter. Zyra looked at Ethan, her aura flickering. The tension was thick. She understood his courage, and it made her glow brighter. That night, Zyra vanished. Ethan found a note on her bed. I am a disgrace. My mistakes bring harm. I will hide until I understand fully. I cannot bring trouble to my human friend. Panic struck Ethan. He ran into the rain, searching the campus for her. Eventually, he found her sitting under a tree, shimmering faintly, droplets rolling off her crystalline skin. She was trying to understand why humans felt comfort in the rain. Zyra, Ethan said softly, crouching beside her. You're not a disgrace. You're learning, and you've already shown more humanity than most of us. She looked at him, eyes reflecting the city lights. But my mistakes, they cause pain. They're part of learning, Ethan said. Humans make mistakes every day. Caring, trying, and learning from it. That's what matters. Not perfection. Her glow pulsed, slow and steady like a heartbeat. You believe I can learn? She whispered. Yes, Ethan said. And I'll help you. Zyra smiled, or at least a version of a smile she had been practicing. Then, tomorrow we continue. The next morning, Zyra appeared at breakfast dressed in her human blending outfit again. It was a mix of mismatched patterns and accessories, but this time she wore them with confidence. I am ready for Lesson 2, Social Integration, she announced. Students stared. Ethan winced. But she marched forward with determination, interacting with humans, making mistakes, laughing in her glowing musical way, and trying again. Ethan realized something important. Zyra's charm wasn't just her beauty or intelligence. It was her persistence, her courage, and her willingness to care. Her attempts weren't perfect, but they were genuine. And that authenticity was contagious. Other students started helping her, showing her slang, offering guidance, even laughing at her mistakes without judgment. Through this chaos, Ethan felt a strange pride. He wasn't just helping her understand humanity. He was witnessing the best of it. The empathy, patience, and kindness humans could offer when they chose to care. Days passed, and the ambassador returned to check on Zyra's progress. This time, however, she saw something different. Zyra had made friends. Humans were protecting her, cheering her on and treating her as one of their own. The ambassador's eyes narrowed, but she could not ignore the change. Zyra's aura glowed brightly, not just with her own energy, but with the warmth of the connections she had formed. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. See, you're already human in ways that matter. You don't have to mimic perfection, you just need to care. Zyra's glow pulsed in agreement. Then I will stay. I will continue to learn even if it means defying my own world. The ambassador scowled, muttered something in Virelian, and left. Zyra sighed, exhausted but relieved. Ethan laughed quietly. That was a lot. Zyra tilted her head. Learning is never easy, but caring, that is worth all mistakes. Ethan nodded, smiling. I think you've learned more than anyone expected. And maybe I've learned too. By the end of the week, Zyra had attempted cooking, studied humor, navigated campus politics, and even played a strange human game called Frisbee. Every attempt brought glowing mishaps, laughter, and growth. Ethan realized something. Zyra's journey wasn't just about being human. It was about connecting, caring, and sharing experiences, the very essence of HFY spirit. And as the sun set on another chaotic, brilliant day, Zyra looked at Ethan, her glow soft and steady. "Tomorrow," she said, "I will learn more. But today, I feel human." Ethan smiled. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, ambassadors, bureaucracy, or unforeseen accidents, they would face them together. Because being human, he realized, wasn't about perfection. It was about the heart, the courage, and the connections we make along the way. The campus was unusually quiet that morning. A gentle breeze carried the scent of rain and fresh earth, but tension lingered in the air. 010 had been summoned by the government to assess the risk of her continued stay on Earth. Rumors spread that her bioluminescent presence might destabilize technology, and officials feared she could influence humans in unpredictable ways. Ethan stood by her side, heart pounding. He had promised to help her understand humanity, and now that promise was about to be tested. "You're not alone," he whispered. "We'll face this together." Zira's glow flickered, faint and uncertain. "I am afraid," she admitted. "If I fail, I will be exiled." "My friends, lost. You lost." Ethan took her hand gently. "You won't fail. You've already shown what it means to care, and that's more than most can do." The government officials arrived in sleek, sterile uniforms, their faces unreadable. Zyra stepped forward, her crystalline body shimmering softly. "I have lived among humans," she said. "I have learned their ways. I care for them, and I care for my human friend." The lead official's voice was cold. "Your presence is dangerous. You must leave immediately." Zira's glow dimmed in shock. She had tried so hard, cooked, laughed, studied, and even learned to play human games. All for this moment. Yet now she faced rejection. Ethan stepped forward, speaking with a confidence he had not known he possessed. "No, you can't just send her away. She's done nothing wrong. She's learning, growing, and showing what it truly means to understand humans." The officials murmured among themselves. "This is unprecedented," one said. "An alien, accepted by humans. Influencing behavior." "Exactly," Ethan said. "That's the point. Understanding, care, and connection, that's humanity. Zyra has shown all of it." The crowd began to gather. Students, both human and alien, came forward to support Zyra. Some held signs, others chanted encouragements. Humans who had once stared at her with curiosity or fear now offered smiles, waves, and friendship. Zyra's aura pulsed brighter with each act of support. She realized something important. Being human wasn't about where she came from. It was about her choices, her care, and her courage. But even as hope swelled, Zyra's energy started to falter. Her species required the light of their homeworld to maintain their bioluminescent bodies. Without it, she was slowly fading. She tried to hide this from Ethan, afraid it would worry him. "You must not worry," she whispered softly during a quiet moment. "I will endure." "For understanding." Ethan shook his head, refusing to let her hide her suffering. "You don't have to endure alone," he said. "We'll find a way, together." The situation reached its climax during the student-led protest. Humans and aliens stood side by side, demanding Zyra be allowed to stay. They carried banners, chanted slogans about coexistence, and spoke passionately about understanding and unity. Zyra watched from the steps of the administration building. Her light flickered weakly, but her determination shone through. She understood now that she had already succeeded in the most important lesson, empathy. But her body weakened further. Ethan noticed the subtle dimming and rushed to her side. "Zyra," he said urgently, "you can't keep pushing yourself like this. Please, you're important. To me and to all of us." She smiled faintly, her glow flickering like a dying star. I am learning. This is what humans endure. Caring, fully, even when it hurts." Ethan's heart ached. He could see the cost of her dedication. "Then we endure together," he said. "I'll help you channel your energy. We can show them, everyone, what it means to be human." In a brilliant act of courage, Zyra concentrated all her remaining light. She released a pulse, soft at first, then growing stronger. The light flowed through the crowd, illuminating humans and aliens alike. The air seemed to hum with resonance, and Ethan realized something incredible. Zyra's energy was harmonizing with the technology around her. Computers, phones, and even streetlights flickered, then stabilized as if responding to her light. The effect was harmless but profound, a visible, tangible proof that humans and aliens could coexist, understand, and support each other. The officials stared in disbelief. They could no longer deny what was happening before their eyes. The crowd cheered, and Zyra's glow pulsed steadily, no longer dimming. She had proven that empathy, care, and connection could overcome fear and misunderstanding. After the demonstration, Zyra collapsed, exhausted but safe. Ethan caught her gently in his arms. "You did it," he said softly. "You've shown them and me what it means to be human." She looked up at him, her eyes shimmering. "You helped me learn caring, understanding, sharing life. These are human. I feel human." Ethan smiled, brushing a wet strand of crystalline hair from her face. "And you are. You don't need to come from Earth to be human. You've chosen it. You've lived it. You've shown it." The crowd witnessing the moment felt the weight of her words. Humans and aliens alike began to applaud, cheer, and celebrate unity. It wasn't just a victory for Zyra. It was a victory for the idea that species, appearances, and origins don't define humanity. Actions and choices do. Over the next few weeks, Zyra recovered fully. Her energy stabilized, and she continued her studies at the university. But something had changed. She was no longer simply a student learning about humans. She was a symbol of coexistence, of empathy, and of courage. Ethan and Zyra continued their daily routines. They laughed, cooked, played games, and even attempted more complex human activities together. Each day was a new lesson, a new opportunity to understand each other and the world around them. One evening, as the city lights glimmered against the night sky, Zyra turned to Ethan. "I have learned much," she said softly. "Not just about humans, but about choice, courage, and connection. I understand now what it truly means to be human." Ethan nodded, smiling. "And I've learned something too. Being human isn't about perfection. It's about trying, caring, and growing. And sometimes it's about helping someone else shine, even when they're not from your world." Zyra's glow pulsed warmly, brighter than ever. "Then we are both human, yes?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan said, laughing gently. "In every way that counts." The night was calm but vibrant with possibilities. Humans and aliens continued to live side by side, learning from each other, sharing experiences, and building connections. And in that harmony, Zyra 10 had found her place, not just on Earth, but in the hearts of those who chose to care. As they walked back to their dorm side by side, Ethan realized that the adventure wasn't over. Every day would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new moments of joy. But now he knew that with courage, empathy, and friendship, anything was possible. And Zyra 10, the beautiful alien who had once struggled to understand humans, now understood something far more important. Humanity is a choice, and she had chosen it.